Mama Aririra. This is Democracy Now! And, of course, that flight that went down was last Thursday night that crashed just outside of Buffalo, New York. As we turn now to our next guest, an intellectual giant in African studies for the past 4 decades. In 2005, Foreign Policy and Prospect magazines named him among the top 100 public intellectuals in the world, written over 30 enormously influential books, including Towards a Pax Africana, The African Condition, Black Reparations in the Era of Globalization, The Power of Babel, Language and Governance in the African Experience, Islam Between Globalization and Counterterrorism, as well as the book The African Predicament and the American Experience, A Tale of Two Edens. He's written and narrated a much-discussed 1986 TV series on BBC and PBS called The Africans, A Triple Heritage. I'm talking about the Kenyan-born Pan-Africanist thinker Ali Mazrui. He is Albert Schweitzer Professor in Humanities and Director of the Institute for Global Cultural Studies at State University of New York, Binghamton. Born in Mombasa in Kenya in 1933, Dr. Mazrui studied in Manchester, New York, and Oxford, then became a professor in Uganda. In 1973, forced into exile by the Ugandan dictator Idi Amin, and has taught in the United States as well as at institutions around the world. In addition to his appointments at Binghamton, Professor Mazrui is also Albert Luthuli Professor at Large at University of Jos in Nigeria, the Andrew D. White Professor at Large Emeritus and Senior Scholar in Africana Studies at Cornell University, and he is Chancellor of Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya. Professor Ali Mazrui joins us now in our Firehouse studio. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Delighted to be here, Amy, and congratulations on your very successful program.
It is great to have you with us. You have had many experiences in your life that really go to the connection between the United States and Africa. You met with the founding president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, in New York, as well as other places. You were driven out of Uganda by Idi Amin, though met with him many times. You met with Jomo Kenyatta. You're the chancellor of a university by that name in Kenya. You met with the Queen of England and sat in a tent with Muammar Gaddafi and discussed world affairs. You just had tea with the Indian Prime Minister in November. This is the 100th anniversary of the birth of Kwame Nkrumah, the founding president of Ghana. It's also the time of the election of the first black president of the United States, his father from Kenya, Barack Obama. I heard you speak yesterday at the International Studies Association in New York, and you said it's bigger than that for Barack Obama.
Yes, indeed. Barack Obama is setting a precedent not just for the United States, but for the entire Western world. In none of the countries in the Western world with a wide majority population has there been an election to install a head of state or a head of government who was black.
So you're saying he's the first black president of the Western Hemisphere?
And of the Western world. That is including Europe, not just the Western Hemisphere, but the Western world as a whole. Because we keep on wondering when we'll have a black president of France, for example, although there's been progress in appointing ministers who are from Africa or from the world of color. And then a black prime minister of Great Britain would be very nice, and I'm sure it will happen, not necessarily in my lifetime, but probably in yours or in the lifetime of my children. And then, even more surprising, but historically, but perfectly understandable in modern terms, a black chancellor of Germany, and that will take a while. But I'm sure because of Barack Obama, and breaking that original taboo in the Western world about appointing as heads of state people who are not of European extraction. It opens other doors around the Western world as well as the Western Hemisphere. And then Barack Obama himself becomes the most powerful single black individual in the history of civilization. You know, there's never been a person in control of the resources which the United States has, of the creative and destructive powers that the United States has. We've had great individuals in African history, like Menelik II of Ethiopia, or Ramses II of Egypt, or even more recent one like Kwame Nkrumah. Those were powerful within their countries or their regions. They were not globally powerful in the sense in which a president of the United States is. So he's easily the most powerful single black individual that's ever walked planet Earth. And that's a major breakthrough in race relations.
His father also is Kenyan, as you are.
Yes, indeed.
The significance of Barack Obama's links, his relations to Kenya.
Yes, well, although I didn't know the older Barack Obama personally, we share friends. They're friends even now. I talk to for information about the older Obama, and we are waiting for the first book about the older Obama, the father, which will be published in Nairobi.
Really?
Yes.
He was a student at University of Hawaii.
Yes.
And also at Harvard?
Yes, he did go to Harvard as well, yes. And then he went back home, and he had ups and downs with the authorities. Unfortunately, the way I have had ups and downs with the authorities.
What do you mean, ups and downs with the authorities?
Well, he, unlike me, he actually was a part of the government because he was appointed into the civil service. And then now and again, he took positions which put him into a bad light with the authorities, including his very strong position upon the assassination of Tom Mboya, who was a fellow Luo, but much more important, he was a potential next president after Kenyatta, and was probably eliminated because of those credentials, presidential credentials for Kenya. And the older Obama was trying to get the government to be much more serious about investigating and not to engage in cover-up, because the chances were that people in government knew about the plot to kill Mboya and were hiding. So he was a fairly brave man, and he was sacked out of the civil service on one occasion and then readmitted later on. He had ups and downs, but he didn't realize he had produced a son who would change the history of race relations in the world.
How do you respond to someone like critics like Glenn Ford? He writes for the Black Agenda Report, who says Obama will provide U.S. empire with a black face, and that could be very destructive.
It is a risk, really, because sometimes people are swallowed up by the position they occupy. I would hope he would help reshape the position he occupies, the presidency of the United States. And I've spoken, including in India, the one thing I hope he will avoid is initiate another military conflict for the United States, because since the 1930s, every single American president has initiated a conflict, either a large-scale war or some kind of confrontation with another country involving weapons. Everybody since Franklin D. Roosevelt. So my hope is he will break that tendency for the American president to feel the way to be really presidential and commander-in-chief is to be ordering an army into action on another society.
And what sense do you have that he will go that way? I mean, since he has come into office, we see one after another of these unmanned drone attacks in Pakistan. Of course, while he says he's going to draw down in Iraq, he's talking about a surge that'll double the force in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. So at the moment, I'm not optimistic that he'll necessarily be just a peacemaking president with the conflicts that are on. So my dream was he will be the first president not to start a conflict, not that he would be the first president not to preside over a war, because he's inheriting 2 wars anyhow. And then with one of them, the Afghanistan, he's not planning to end it, really. He's planning to escalate it for a while. So that is disappointing.